Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
San Diego could take a step towards solving its twin crises of housing and homelessness. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. City leaders are proposing new rights for renters, making it harder for landlords to evict them. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson looked into the proposal, which the City Council will review next week.
San Diegans who are paying their rent and abiding by their lease should not live in fear of eviction.
The city change would bring protections in line with state law and go a bit further. Molly Kirkland, a rental housing association spokesperson, says they're concerned that the proposal's added fees and administrative hoops might push smaller landlords out of the market.
We don't have a crystal ball, and largely our work has been to try to mitigate what we foresee as unintended consequences.
If passed, landlords would face new requirements, including paying tenants at least 2 months' rent if they evict without just cause. Protections would begin on the first day of the lease. It would be harder to evict in order to renovate and hike the rent, something housing advocates say drives homelessness. But Kirkland says most of the city's housing is more than 30 years old and in need of upgrades.
We, don't want to do anything that would, mean older housing stock can't be brought up to more modern standards, if you will.
Housing attorney Gil Vera says San Diego currently has the weakest renter protections in the state, and remodel evictions soared during the pandemic. He says the proposal won't put an end to that, just give tenants a bit more notice and financial help. And evictions have always had a cost. The question is, who should pay?
A landlord who has a rental property, who has equity, who has cash flow from these, or a tenant who may be rent burdened, paying more than 30% of their income, right? Who's in a better position to bear those costs?
I called.
Janaea Nicole Wall says 2 months' rent is not enough to cover the costs of displacement. She's disabled and says she successfully fought a remodel eviction during the pandemic.
I have a CPAP machine. I have medication that requires to be refrigerated. I can't just say, all right, I'm gonna move, and then ain't got nowhere to go and then be on the streets, because most likely I would have died.
Mayor Todd Gloria and Council President Sean Elo Rivera, who put forth the proposal, say landlords have been involved in the process and it's meant to strike a balance. Under the new guidelines, landlords could still evict tenants without penalty for reasons like not paying rent or violating a condition of the lease. The proposal follows the city's recent declaration of housing as a human right. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
A number of California nonprofits and programs are getting a large investment from the federal government to tackle homelessness and housing insecurity. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne looks into what the funding means.
U.S. Senator Alex Padilla secured over $600 million in federal funding for programs across California. The funding includes help for homeless youth, continuation of homelessness prevention programs, rental assistance, and housing vouchers for rural areas in the state. A dozen San Diego County programs are included in the funding. The Community Resource Center in Encinitas is one of them. The center's program officer, Rebecca Nussbaum, says the grant means they can help more families.
This funding is going to allow CRC to work with an additional 35 households that are folks that are currently unsheltered and unhoused, and to support them in finding and securing housing in our area.
She says federal funding is essential for organizations fighting the fast pace of people entering homelessness and trying to prevent it.
This are really essential dollars to continuing our mission and our work in the community. We really believe that housing is a right and a need for all, and making sure that everyone has access to support and services that they need to afford a home really helps us accomplish this goal.
Nussbaum says the funding will also help support their domestic violence program. Greg Angel, the CEO of Interfaith Community Services, says organizations across San Diego are seeing the increase in homelessness.
As important as this renewal funding is, it's also worth understanding that homelessness is increasing in our communities, and we believe it is a worthwhile investment for our federal government to also provide an increase in funding so that we can help more people.
Federal grants aren't new to Interfaith. And Angel says without the support, organizations fall further behind on helping more people get off the streets.
Without this funding source, housing programs that are housing disabled, formerly homeless seniors would close. And without this funding, homeless families who we will be working with in the year ahead would not be able to get emergency housing and rental assistance to end their homelessness.
While final numbers for the 2023 point-in-time count have yet to be released, Angel said last year about 2,000 individuals experiencing homelessness were counted in North County. With limited resources, he says organizations need all the support they can get to help get people into housing. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court is extending access to an abortion pill at least for 2 more days. The justices are considering whether to allow restrictions on mifepristone to take effect as the case to roll back the medication's FDA approval continues. Now the court says it will rule by Friday night. This week, California announced it would protect pharmacists within the state dispensing mifepristone, even if the Supreme Court suspends the drug's FDA approval. For at least the 3rd time in a week, an apparent mistake has been met with gunfire in the U.S. Laura Aguirre has the latest developments.
I'm Peyton Washington on Woodlands Elite Generals. Peyton Washington, one of 2 Texas cheerleaders shot after a wrong car mix-up Tuesday. Arrested and charged is this man, 25-year-old Pedro Rodriguez Jr. Police say Rodriguez allegedly fired at the girls after Washington's teammate accidentally got into his vehicle at a carpool drop-off, thinking it was her own. That teammate, Heather Roth, was slightly wounded. Washington was critically injured and airlifted to a hospital.
I was trying to apologize to him, and then I just, halfway my window was down, he just threw his hands up, and then he pulled out a gun, and then he just started shooting at all of us.
The managing director of the girls' cheer team says that Washington is a fighter, rising to the top of her sport despite being born with 1 lung.
She's a mentor and a role model to so many kids in this industry. She's an amazing athlete, amazing kid.
In Kansas City, 84-year-old Andrew Lester pleaded not guilty to felony charges Wednesday afternoon, accused of shooting 16-year-old Ralph Yarl last week when the teen came to Lester's home by mistake. A probable cause statement reveals Lester told police he was scared to death of Yarl when he fired his gun.
This should be a federal hate crime, at least investigation. I believe that it merits federal hate crime charges and a conviction.
Yarl is recovering from gunshots in the head and arm. Attorney Lee Merritt sharing this picture on Instagram Wednesday, referring to Yarl as a walking miracle. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
A case against SDSU by some of its women's sports athletes will move forward. A federal judge in San Diego says the athletes have standing to sue. The Title IX case involves claims that SDSU gives women athletes less scholarship money than men. SDSU denies the disparity and argued for the case to be dismissed. Many of those involved in the case were part of the SDSU rowing team that was cut after the 2021 season. Today, students at UC San Diego held a Walkout for Climate rally on campus. The protesters want to eliminate the university's use of carbon-based energy. And as KPBS reporter Thomas Fudge tells us, they got some encouragement this week from the chancellor.
Hey, UC, we see you!
The rally took place outside UCSD's Geisel Library. About 200 people attended. Students had been encouraged to cut class to be there. That's why they called it a walkout. One of the students who showed up and spoke at the rally was Monica Nelson.
I'm pretty terrified about where we're going in terms of climate change. I'm pretty frustrated with the lack of action and leadership that we're seeing from big entities like our university that can actually influence change.
UC San Diego has played a major role in climate science, documenting the rising levels of CO2 in the atmosphere with what's called the Keeling curve. But students want UCSD to do more when it comes to reducing its own use of power that's derived from burning carbon. They also want the campus to refuse any academic funding that comes from the oil industry. Sophie Dela Cruz is with the group Green New Deal at UC San Diego. She helps organize the COSLA Must Commit campaign.
And that's basically a campaign where we're encouraging the chancellor to decarbonize the campus by 2030.
UCSD issued a statement saying the university is exploring the feasibility of retiring the university's natural gas-fired cogeneration plant and converting to technologies that reduce the reliance on fossil fuel. But Nelson says that Chancellor Pradeep Khosla has already committed to the goal of decarbonizing power on campus by the end of the decade. He did it this week, in fact. She said it was at a public event on Monday.
In his opening remarks at that event, Chancellor Khosla made this announcement that it is his hope, dream, and desire that we electrify by 2030.
The Chancellor's office has confirmed that Pradeep Khosla made that statement. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
For years, neighbors in Barrio Logan have complained about a strong odor coming from a nearby biofuel plant. And last October, the Air Pollution Control Board ordered the New Leaf biofuel company to seal its factory building and install a new filter to help with the smell. Neighbors say it has improved, but now the company is looking into a construction project, raising new concerns.
And there's hardly any way that we can do anything about it until the plant decides to do something. Otherwise, we keep smelling this smell and getting headaches and stomach aches from it. So.
The Barrio Logan Planning Group's meeting agenda says the construction involves building an underground pipe on Sicard Street, 3 blocks away from the plant, and residents can weigh in on the issue during the meeting at 6 o'clock tonight at the Chicano Park Cultural Center. A breath of fresh air may be hard to come by for many people here in California. An American Lung Association report today shows about a quarter of Americans live with air pollution. A disproportionate amount are people of color. 10 of the 25 most polluted cities are in California, and San Diego ranked 8th for ozone pollution and 16th for short-term particle pollution. However, the Environmental Protection Agency says efforts like emission controls and people working from home have helped matters. 2 deadly collisions involving Navy surface ships in 2017 sparked sweeping changes in the way that the Navy trains the sailors who pilot and crew those ships. And recent investigations also found stress and mental health challenges also contributed. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer visited with sailors recently on base to get the latest.
The waterfront at Naval Base San Diego is busy as sailors navigate between hulking gray warships. Amphibious big decks, littoral combat ships, and destroyers are moored one after the other. Their masts form their own kind of skyline juxtaposed to the high-rises of nearby downtown San Diego. Last October, the Navy opened its embedded mental health clinic just steps away from these very warships. The clinic is run by Naval Surface Force Pacific and serves the sailors stationed aboard the 51 Surface Force vessels that are based in San Diego.
So we have approximately 20 providers, psychiatrists, psychologists, nurse practitioners, social workers, both active duty and civilian, as well as enlisted behavioral health technicians that directly serve the mental health needs of the Surface Navy here in San Diego.
Navy Captain Tara Smith is the mental health officer for the Surface Force in San Diego. She says life aboard Navy ships creates unique stressors for sailors, such as long working hours and the need to constantly navigate tight spaces.
It's noisy. You don't see the sunlight all day unless you're working outside on the flight deck. You have artificial lighting all day. There aren't windows.
Last year, a Navy investigation into a cluster of suicides on the aircraft carrier George Washington, based in Norfolk, Virginia, found the Navy's mental health services lacking amid a shortage of providers nationwide. Although the probe found the suicides were not connected, it did find that working conditions on the ship played a role in 1 of 3 deaths that occurred within a week of one another. The ship is in the midst of an extended midlife refueling of its nuclear reactors.
I think that George Washington was unfortunate, but it certainly wasn't the first time in our military or our country where we've had contagion.
Contagion, as Smith explains, is when one person's suicide may lead to other attempts.
But it's not a uniquely military issue that we are somehow failing at the problem of suicide. There is a nationwide challenge with suicide right now.
We take sailors from around the planet. They don't even have to be citizens of our country to join. We take them away from their families, areas that they're really intimately familiar with.
That's Force Master Chief Greg Carlson, the senior enlisted sailor for the entire surface fleet. Smith says the most common mental health diagnosis for sailors is adjustment disorder, caused by all the stressors of their completely different lifestyles.
The Navy's a tough adjustment. It's a rude awakening when maybe you've never been held accountable before and someone is saying you're late to work and here are the consequences, and that's eye-opening.
Another way the Surface Navy says it's working to help sailors is a new initiative to station chaplains aboard its destroyers. While chaplains primarily manage religious ministry programs, they also provide confidential counseling to sailors, according to Force Chaplain Captain Richard Ryan.
We're able to see them as often as they want to be seen and help them through these issues.
Last year, chaplains visiting destroyers without full-time chaplains saw fewer than 3 sailors a month for counseling. Ryan says that on destroyers with full-time chaplains, they saw an average of 31 a month. On the waterfront, sailors say news about the resources available has reached them on the deck plates. Petty Officer 3rd Class Dasha Chupp is a boatswain's mate on the amphibious transport dock Somerset. She's been in the Navy 3 years and says the service's attitude toward mental health has changed.
They communicate more now, and they make it known that we can go to them or other people if they need to.
Ryan says 29 destroyers now have full-time chaplains on board, with the rest getting them over the next 2 years. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
And if you or someone you know may be considering suicide, you can call or text 988 or chat online at 988lifeline.org. The work is done, and now the countdown begins in National City as a decades-old ban on street cruising is repealed. Last night, the City Council held its final vote to repeal the ordinance. The United Lowrider Coalition worked on this for 2 years. Here's the vote, followed by reaction from some of the coalition members.
Si se puede.
Vice Mayor Molina?
Yes.
Mayor Morrison?
A big yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
There you go.
It felt amazing. It felt unbelievable.
We just kept making noise and making noise, but we did it the right way.
And there is a 30-day period for the changes to take effect, meaning lowriders and other cars can cruise in peace on May 19th. The United Lowrider Coalition is planning a celebration along Highland Avenue. Bees are responsible for pollinating nearly $20 billion worth of crops each year across the country. But California's bee industry did not go untouched during this year's winter storms. Brisa Colon spoke with a beekeeper in the Central Valley to find out how they were affected.
The bee industry working to recover from this year's storms. Cold, wet conditions hindering pollination of various crops.
There was a 9-day period where the bees could not fly because of the cold and windy and rainy weather. So it required us to feed our bees more.
Local commercial beekeeper Gene Brandy has owned apiaries for over 50 years. He transports his bees over 6 times a year around the country. During the springtime, Brandy brings his bees to the Central Coast to pollinate wildflowers and produce honey.
The bees are here on this ranch in Soledad to potentially make some honey, perhaps some sage. There is some sage up in the hills here.
Following each winter, some of Gene's hives die, and when the spring hits, he has to make up for them by bringing in some queen bees.
Normally we get our California queens by the 1st of April, and everybody's late this year because of the storms. So we're getting 100 today, and they come in a box of 100, and they're $28, $29 a piece. So each little box of 100, it's almost $3,000 with shipping.
The last 3 years of drought were not good for the honey industry. Even though the honey flow hasn't started yet this year, Brandy says industry is looking forward to a good spring.
Rains have actually been a blessing for us in the sense that it's going to make for a great spring. There's already a lot of wildflowers out, and we're looking forward to a good crop of, we're hoping, sage honey, buckwheat honey, toy on honey.
Sage honey in particular is a premium product that can only be made after there is ample rain. Here on the Central Coast, for honey-making beekeepers are so hopeful about this season that they'll be making sage honey for the first time since 2019. Produce such as berries, seeds of plants like lettuce and broccoli require pollination from bees.
Honeybees are certainly important for the Salinas Valley in that there's a lot of vegetable seed crops that require bees, and for the farmers that were not flooded and are able to farm somewhat normally, there will be bees in their fields very soon, if not already.
With more loss to bees this winter than ideal, beekeepers are keeping bee health at top priority.
Let's take a look at your weather headlines here as we have the cool and breezy weather that continues, but we do see a warming trend on the way, and then we're back to some cooler temperatures because of the marine layer moving back in as we head into next week. Speaking of cool, let's go to our low temperatures tonight. Oceanside down to 45, San Diego you drop to 52, Chula Vista down to 49, and Mount Laguna you drop to 41. Looking at our setup as we head throughout the day on Thursday, as we have dry and warmer conditions along the coast, though things will be a bit breezier throughout the day on Thursday. Temperatures will be a pretty big range here. Oceanside 71 with sunshine, San Diego into the low 70s, and Chula Vista into the lower 70s. But we head over to Borrego Springs 86. Meanwhile, Mount Laguna you only get up to 55 on Thursday. But warmer temperatures are on the way as we head into the day on Friday. So that'll be a nice little uptick here as we do wrap up our week. Let's take a look at a few of your 5-day forecasts here, starting along the coast with temperatures warming up as we head into Friday, and then things cool back down as we head into next week with some more clouds. Your 5-day forecast inland, we'll be back into the upper 80s Friday and Saturday, but then look at Monday. Temperatures will start to drop again with more cloud coverage moving back in. Temperatures only into the lower 70s with those overnight temperatures dropping into the 50s. In the mountains over the next 5 days, we go from mid-50s with plenty of sunshine on Thursday to the upper 50s as we head into Friday, and we'll hang out to those upper 50s for the weekend before we start to see things cool back down as we head into the start of next week with a little more cloud coverage. And your 5-day outlook in the desert as things begin to heat up. Thursday, plenty of sunshine, 86, but then we'll see the low 90s as we head into Friday. If you think that's hot, just take a peek at where we go for the weekend into the deserts with temperatures into the mid to upper 90s. But don't worry, we get a little bit of a cool down as we head into Monday of next week with those temperatures back into the upper 80s. So a lot of us will warm up to then just cool back down. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise.
San Diego Zoo scientists are celebrating the world's second successful cloning of an endangered wild horse species. Przewalski horse was born in mid-February from a 40-year-old cell line at the San Diego Zoo's Frozen Zoo. Researchers say this shows that cloning is becoming more viable for species conservation. The Smithsonian Institution says the Przewalski horse are critically endangered in Mongolia and are distant cousins to domestic horses. They share a common ancestor from around 500,000 years ago. President Biden has appointed new members to his Committee on the Arts and Humanities, and among some high-powered celebrities and scholars is a San Diegan well known to the local community college district. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has the story.
Opening night is just 48 hours away. This production of the musical Cabaret on stage at San Diego City College is entertaining, educational, and political. Director and theater professor Katie Rotter chose it for student performers, inspired by the events of January 6th.
In Cabaret, it's right as the Nazi Party is coming to power. And I saw the similarities of the same situation, a very small group of individuals, very angry, who are wielding enormous power with disastrous consequences.
The City College Theater program is an established example of San Diego's arts and humanities culture, which is preparing for a national spotlight.
This show deserves to be seen, our artists deserve to be seen, and so it means a lot that somebody's stepping up to expose such a great art form.
And of course I will brag about San Diego, which is a multicultural city and region.
Dr. Constance Carroll has just been named to President Biden's Committee on the Arts and Humanities. She served as chancellor of the San Diego Community College District for 17 years, retiring in 2021. But she's continued her work in education and the arts, which she says helps us understand who we are.
Who we are culturally, who we are morally, who we are historically, and with respect to our ambitions for the future.
Lady Gaga, George Clooney, Shonda Rhimes, and 20 other prominent artists, scholars, and producers will also serve on the Presidential Committee, which in the past has provided the president with proposals to improve arts education, help in international arts exchange programs, and made contributions to the creative economy. The President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities is intentionally made up of a diverse group of people, but their expertise is combined to benefit the arts across America, from the stage to the screen and everywhere in between. And they all have something in common.
And a passion for the importance of the arts and humanities to American life. And I think that that's what the glue that will hold the committee together.
She's a fan of Lady Gaga's music, too.
I like Bad Romance. That's probably my favorite.
Any chance we'll see a duet with you?
You'll have to ask her.
Something else to look forward to in the arts and humanities. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.